yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about, have your fucking cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now.
You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Magical Journey. I am your host, Daniel Cahoon, and I'm going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion here before we get started today. First of all, if you have not joined my Facebook group yet, that is all about this little experience that we're doing here, then please do so. It is listed as Magical Journey on Facebook under groups. There's also a page. The page is strictly for the shows coming up, and it's all about the shows, the groups. There's some other stuff going on there too. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You have to go look it up. Also, if you have any questions about what exactly we're doing, how to find all of my social media and so forth, magicaljourney.com is a place to be. It is a place where I have all my listings. There's updates going on that site with some new links to new video and so forth from time to time. So bookmark that, enjoy it, and check out some of the links on there, and make sure you read all the little fine print because it's really important stuff, and it's not too fine yet. Meanwhile, I have today for you a very, very cool guest that I found online, and he has also a podcaster too, so he knows already the ins and outs of doing the shows, and he knows about the paranormal because he's experienced it. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring Keegan Reed to the stage. Hey.
Hey, Daniel, how's it going? Thanks for the introduction.
No problem. Thank you. Doing good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little shameless promotion on your social media and any endeavors that you want to promote.
Okay. So my name is Keegan Reed. I'm 32 years young, I suppose is the right mindset to have, right? I'm originally from Amarillo, Texas, and that's where most of my stories are going to take place because that's where I grew up. But I'm currently in Dallas. I wound up in Dallas, well, technically Garland, but in the area for recovery from addiction, alcoholism to be specific. So I'm going on 4 years sober. And
Good deal.
I have a podcast called Retrieving Sanity. It's all about mental health and getting people's stories and talking to professionals, figuring out different ways that we can handle ourselves and learn to grow and be better and just change for the good for once instead of letting the world change us, you know. So I kind of explore all different mental avenues, and the paranormal is one that kind of fits in with my spiritual beliefs. And so it's one of those things that everything kind of ties together in this own weird, intricate way. And I'm just really glad that I found, or rather, you found me, and uh, I get to share some of my experiences with you. So,
Right. Now, remind me because there's something about Amarillo that I should know, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I hear that name every once in a while. So, what is it about Amarillo that stands out?
so Amarillo, if you're from the area, it's nothing special, except for we have nuclear weapons there. Amarillo, yeah, right. It's like everyone should know this, but Amarillo is in the smack dab middle of the Panhandle of Texas, and rather almost in the middle of the USA, like the contingent USA. And so it's got I-40 running east to west and I-27 running north to south, right through it. So two major highways, and it had a Air Force base long time ago, and that's actually where I grew up because it was decommissioned. And so Amarillo is home to Pantex, which is where the U.S. usually goes and stores the nuclear weapons that kind of got stockpiled because of the Cold War and stuff. So theory is, and rumor has it, that they dismantle, reassemble, test them, and all this other stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of folklore around Pantex in general, and it has actually earned Amarillo the name Bomb City. Uh, and it's got its own little movie, but it's not actually about the weapons that go on there. It's actually its whole other ordeal. So Amarillo, it doesn't seem like it holds a whole lot, but it's one of those small towns or small cities that once you kind of get into the history of, it's a little kind of like there's something going on here. But uh, and most people don't know Amarillo is Amarillo, so it's actually yellow. And if you live out there, it's nothing but flat land and yellow grass. So
Wow.
it really doesn't seem like it's a whole lot, but once you live there for your whole life, you kind of pick up a lot. So,
Right, right. Yeah. So you say that your paranormal experiences primarily took place there?
hmm uh, yeah, on the decommissioned Air Force Base. So, uh,
Interesting.
yeah, rumor has it, whenever I was walking around one day, I actually ended up talking with an elderly couple that had lived there for several years. And they had said that while it was in operation, it had the highest suicide rate out of the bases. So that kind of finally gave me credibility of like, oh, that's why it kind of feels spooky no matter where you go. So,
Mm, wow.
hmm
Yeah, that can create a because just all of the things that revolve around the energy of unaliving yourself, as we say online.
oh yeah, so
Yeah,
sorry.
just kind of it all of that energy opens a lot of doors. So
hmm
and then the whole process of leaving the body and so forth, especially if you have massive amounts of people doing that. Massive being more than five or six in a
hmm
lifetime. Um, it definitely opens doors. So that would explain some maybe of what's going on there.
hmm
So tell us a little bit about some of your experiences.
Well, I mean, I have quite a few. There are some, there are some that are notable that really stick out. But I guess I can kind of go with the like stuff that would happen almost every night.
Hmm.
So I lived in a total of three houses while my family lived out there, and it was just because we were trying to get everything settled, kind of new family. So we ended up at one location, 811 Adobe Drive, and we were there for many years. And every night I would hear stuff walking up and down the hall. You could hear the doorknobs kind of rattle, or someone would knock at the door and no one would be there. Um, and every now and then you could hear indistinct. like chatter like in the background, and there was no one home, no TVs on, no radios, and there was always this uneasy feeling, either in the living room or coming from the bathroom. And so uh, it was just one of those things that uh, always gave me the heebie-jeebies at night, and never really understood why. But um, after the whole the unaliving news, it kind of made sense, you know. But
Right.
one of the bigger moments that happened at home, though, was seeing my younger sister's doppelganger or double. And that one shook me and my friend to the core. So there was one day we were 16, and I had a car, so we were able to leave school a little bit early. Um, and so we got home, and I was in the kitchen with my friend, and I was doing the dishes because I was trying to do chores so I could go hang out with friends, you know, trying to be a good high school kid. And so we see the school bus drive past my house, and my little sister gets off the school bus and walks into uh, her room, like goes in the front door, shuts it and everything, doesn't say anything, which wasn't abnormal. That was very much like my little sister, just goes into her room, shuts the door, and that's that. And I was like, okay, you know, like whatever. 10 minutes later, my mom, who worked at the school, comes home, and my little sister gets out of the car. And we were like, hey, mom, when did you come get her? And she was like, I got her from school. And my friend just immediately just dropped what he was doing. He was like, hey, I'll see you later. And he just left. And I was like, hey, don't leave me here alone. I'm coming with. And there was another time that he saw a shadow figure in the hallway right next to my sister's door. So um, never really liked going into her room that much either. So I don't know what was all in there. But that one was very, very creepy because there was no kind of sign of anything wrong. And I mean, she was in the same clothes and everything. And I thought I was crazy, except my friend saw it too. So that one like just made me feel so much better, but also so much worse.
Right. Right. It's very interesting too because the subject of doppelgangers is not something that comes up a lot with me,
Mhm.
but this is the second interview in a row that I've done that has been mentioned.
Huh.
So
I'm thinking
that's
about that.
very interesting. Very interesting. Can you tell me about how old your sister was at the time that you saw this?
At the time, so if I was 16, she was probably about 14.
Hmm.
Um, so not that much younger, but just a few grades below me. So it just gave me the privilege of going home early, which happened to lead to that incident. And I still scratch my head to it because, I mean, it was as real as me and this computer screen that you're on. Like, I
Wow.
swear I could have
Yeah.
reached out and touched her, but I mean, I'm sitting there doing the dishes, minding my business. She just came in the front door, went straight to her room, minding her business, like she always does. So I
Hmm.
never thought anything weird about it until she stepped out of my mother's car 10 minutes later. So,
It's interesting that you say that there was like your friends saw shadow people around her room too.
mhm.
And one of the reasons why I think that's interesting is because, like, typically, like, young ladies, especially like between the ages of 12 to 14 or 15,
Mhm.
when they're first going through adolescence and puberty and all that, tend to have like an exceptionally large amount of paranormal activity around them at
Huh.
times. If they are, and not this doesn't happen with everybody, but if they
Mhm.
are more prone to that sort of thing, it
Yeah.
tends to really take on a life of its own almost during that
Mhm.
time period.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah, yeah. That's where you get a lot of poltergeist activity and so forth too,
Hmm.
is especially young women going through puberty tend to have a lot of poltergeist activity around them. So it's interesting too that you noted that this was a house number 811,
Hmm.
because those numbers can be really significant for people that are in numerology,
Hmm.
and they also have a combined total of 10 or 1 depending on where in numerology you fall on your belief system, whether you believe that 10
Hmm.
is a accountable number or you need to break it down to its actual single digit number, which would be 1.
Hmm.
So it's very interesting that the numbers kind of align into the mystical too, with
Hmm.
that. But
I never thought about
with
that, but yeah.
yeah, right. Um, so those were some daily experiences and current or common experiences that
Hmm.
happened there in the house. What are some of the things that happened there that really kind of stick out to you as like the thing that was like, oh wow,
In the house,
yeah,
so there's one other incident that so it's going back to the bathroom. Uh,
hmm,
the and I actually made a Reddit post about this. So if anyone wants to read it, I made this. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. But I titled it "The Thing with No Skin." And so remember, I had this odd feeling leaving this bathroom at night, no matter what, ever since I was little, all the way up until we moved out of that house. No matter how much I could fight the feeling and not run out of the bathroom, I always wanted out of there. So there's one evening, um, I'm taking a shower and, uh, I was just trying to be in and out real quick. And I'm sitting there doing my thing and I turn off the water. And the bathroom was situated so that you walk in, the tub was on your left, and you had the sink immediately to the right with the mirror. So that if you were in the tub and you were looking out, like standing up, you'd be looking in the mirror. And so I'm looking in the mirror and it's all kind of fogged over. And I get out and I remember like kind of wiping my hair and wiping off the mirror to kind of just take a look. And there was something standing in the tub and it didn't have any skin and its mouth was sewn shut or appeared to be. I don't know. And it just kind of just sat there and I froze. I didn't know what to do. I still get the heebie jeebies thinking about it. And um it just eventually just kind of went poof, like I blinked, turned away, and it was gone. But the feeling was still there, and like I did not want to be there. And I remember I drew something about it that kind of reminded me what it was, but I'm not an artist. So all I had was just this weird face with sewn together lips and just no skin. And it was extremely creepy. And I just kind of sat there and it took me probably 2 3 weeks before I actually wanted to be back in that bathroom at all. I did go through a period where I would just take a shower at school and then go back. So um yeah.
wow. Yeah, that host setup of that bathroom is not a good idea.
Uh-uh.
You never want to have like a mirror facing a water fixture like that. It's just bad
Mhm.
combination. And the reason for that is like mirrors are considered a portal anyway,
Mhm.
and water is considered a conduit for energy and spirits. So putting them together like that, it's just you're just asking for stuff to happen.
Hmm.
Especially if you got a place already that has bad energy. So, yeah, I don't think I would probably want to shower in that room either without covering the mirror or something.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So, did you when you left that house?
Hmm.
Where did you go to next?
Uh, well, my family had moved to another house. Let's see. After 8/11, it was, I think. Ooh, I forget the name of the street. Um, sorry, I'm terrible with names. But we did it. We stayed in Amarillo, but it was actually off of the Air Force Base at this point.
Mm,
Um, and so I personally think that there's something attached to my younger sister still to this day. Um, she's kind of estranged herself from the family. It's a whole debacle. It's a whole thing I'm not going to get into, but I'm convinced that there's something that she doesn't want to get rid of. And I think she's kind of aware of it too. So that makes it just even doubly worse. So it's one of those uh, someone cries wolf and gets the attention of sorts, but
mm,
I don't know. Like it's I have mixed feelings about it because she's my little sister, but I also know that she is allowing some stuff to kind of happen, or at least did in the past, and I don't know what she's done, if anything, to try to fix it at all. So, but
wow. Do you think she may have had a hitchhiker from the other house?
I personally do, because she's always had this melancholy air about her ever since we moved out of there. It was melancholy,
Mhm.
and then if it wasn't that, it would be like anger, kind of stuff, and it was normally directed towards the relatives, not so much friends and stuff. But I don't know. I think she's aware of it, or used to be, and I think she just kind of said, "All right, well." I think she was desperate for a friend in a time of need whenever she was young, and she found solace in that. That's my best guess.
Mhm.
But
Do you know, does she practice necromancy or any type of witchcraft?
in the past she did, I know,
Okay.
but I think that was prior. Like I think the incidents happened to her before she started all of that, and I think that may have gotten what uh, that may have been the catalyst to her getting started with it. So, like I said, I haven't really spoken to her too much over the years because she's just kind of taken herself out from the equation of the family,
Mm,
unfortunately. So,
right, right. And a lot of times, and with your own experience, yeah, I'm sure you can relate to this. Like a lot of people who experience paranormal activity,
hmm.
it causes a lot of emotional issues, a lot of psychological issues. Excuse me, and it can lead to a lot of even the onset of mental illness and so forth. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's definitely something to be said about the experience itself.
Hmm.
So this place that was off the base, it
Hmm.
was still kind of a catalyst for some some activity then.
Well, yeah, I'd say so. But the thing was, I'd never really stayed with my parents for much longer after that, because I eventually moved out. Uh, and so I wound up getting married and just doing my own thing. So I don't know how much stuff has followed either my parents as well. But I think if they haven't really experienced that much, then it's probably still with my younger sister. So, um,
Wow.
But there were a lot of experiences outside of the house. There's one in particular I'd kind of like to mention because my friend wanted is another friend, but it happened on the base, and we were probably 16 again, 16, 17. And there's one evening we were at his house. No, we were at one of our friends' house, and we all kind of got this weird, creepy feeling because we were staying the night, and uh, our little crew, we would go walking around at night all the time just because whenever you live out in the middle of nowhere, there's nothing to do. We didn't really have cars, so just go enjoy what you got, even though it kind of creeped us out. But we got we got back to one of our friends' house, and we're just kind of chilling there. We're having fun, and we kind of get creeped out, and we hear some stuff on the patio, and uh, one of the friends sees like what they say was a girl with a cut up face, or just kind of messed up. But I kind of sort of saw it, but it was more of like it was there but not there. Like I could feel it more than I could see it, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
so eventually that feeling just like was at the back door, and it was one of those back doors that slide open and it's glass. So it's on the other side of the door, but it's not doing anything except for just kind of being intimidating is the best guess I could get. And so eventually we're all just kind of not cuddled, huddled, but huddled up on a couch over here away from it. We're all freaking out. Like, what is this? Like, why does it feel like something is in the backyard trying to kill us? And next thing you know, we hear something going on at the front door, and just like someone trying to get in, and we start freaking out. We're like, oh no. And this giant dog comes busting through the door. And the mother of the friend whose house it was comes in the door. And so this big old dog scares the crap out of us, but comes up, looks us all about 10, 15 minutes, and then they leave. And then me and this one of the friends, we decide to go out on the back patio to kind of meditate, like I was wondering, like, can we tune in to see like what that maybe was or something? And while we're out there, uh there's this little tiny fence that goes around the back porch, but then it opens up into this alleyway, and it's a full moon, so there's like hardly any clouds in the sky. It was bright outside, and while we're meditating, I kind of heard like a little scurrying around on the backside of the fence. And being out in the country, didn't think too much of it. I was like, okay, like it's a rabbit. And I looked over one time, I didn't see anything, but I heard something, and I was like, okay, still not that abnormal. And then after a little bit, my friend mentions it, and he's like, hey, did you hear that? And I was like, dude, I've been hearing it. And he's like, okay, I have been too. I just didn't want to say anything. So now that we both acknowledge that we've been hearing it, we both didn't want to say anything. We both get up and we look over this fence, and in the middle of the alley, there's this, I don't know about how big, but it was about that big, and it was just solid pitch black. And it was just kind of chilling on the ground. And uh like again, full moon, you could see your own shadow, but there was no trees around it, so there was no other shadows, no other moonlit shadows around. And so he throws this gardening tool at it, and it just goes, the thing just shoots off, and the dogs down the alley just start going crazy. And after that, we have no idea what it was. uh and we went, and he picked up that gardening tool from the ground, and that was that. But he saw it and just chunked one of those little weed pullers, uh, and he just pulled it out of the ground. But the dogs were going absolutely crazy down the way that it shot down. And I mean, that thing moved faster than I could probably blink. So, mm-hmm,
And you mentioned that like it was pitch black. It was a
mm-hmm,
really, really deep black. It's
mm-hmm,
interesting because that's really common with cryptid descriptions a lot of times. A lot of cryptids have a really blacker than black almost color to
mm-hmm.
them. So let me ask you this, and may seem totally unrelated in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, but so I noticed with like the hair and the eye color and some of the bone structure and so forth
Mm-hmm.
that you probably have a lot of Celtic ancestry.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. Yeah. 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 That's kind of I kind of felt that too. Um, and that can be significant sometimes too,
Mm-hmm.
because depending on where you line up with the belief in ancestors and so forth like that,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that can factor into things going on around you and things not going on around you at times
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it looks to me, wow, you do have a lot going on here. I'm looking at my notes. So one of the things I hear you saying too is like there was a one incident in the bathroom where you saw what you call the thing with no skin, and
Mm-hmm.
then there was the incident where you saw the girl with the cut up face.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that both of these happened in and around
Mm-hmm.
that same airbase.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Did you ever see experience any UFO activity or any?
Yeah. Yep. There were a couple. So there's one that really sticks out. Um, aside from so for context, I would like to reiterate that this old Air Force base is on the outside of Amarillo, and it is right next to the Rick Husband International Airport. So that's also where Bell Helicopter tests a lot of different uh, aircraft and stuff like that. So I'm fairly familiar with some unusual looking aircraft, especially like the V-22 Osprey. They flew that around a lot, testing it out there. Really interesting aircraft. Look it up because they've been working on it for freaking ever. I don't know if they're ever going to be ready with it, to be honest. But I'm fairly familiar with the sounds and the looks of different aircraft, and I know what weather balloons look like far away, stuff like that. Because also on the outskirts of town, further down, is where the weather station for Amarillo is. So altogether, you have a lot of aviation stuff going on in this little tight knit area. So on the opposite side of where I'm standing in this little scenario is behind me would be where the airport's at. So we were at the uh, we refer to the Air Force base as the base. So it was the whole area. We just referred to it as base. We were at the playground for the base. We're watching this guy just being bored out in the middle of nowhere because high school students, what else are you going to do whenever there's nothing to do? So we're just kind of chilling, and I see this black dot, and it just kind of like just shows up, and I was like, huh? So I'm sitting there looking at it, and me and my friend, and this is the same one that threw the thing at the gardening tool. Is the same friend. So I pointed out to him, and we're just kind of sitting there looking at it, and we're like, yeah, it's not really moving. And then it starts moving, but it just like kind of just gently goes over and then stops. And then I was like, okay, like I'm not noticing what that could be. And then we see like 5 or 6 different dots like shoot out from it. And I was like, what? Because they didn't just like shoot out, they like kind of came out and then shot. So
Mm,
I was kind of like, okay, that was weird. It looked like it just deployed something like a nest, like a seed pod exploding and then deploying some seeds, you know.
wow.
But we're just kind of sitting there looking at it, and I mean, it's pretty far away. I don't know about how far, but far enough for me to not make out details, except for that it's odd. It doesn't really have the same shape as other aircraft that I'm familiar with, especially being able to sit still for so long. and then we see each one of those dots that shot out away from it, one by one, come back to it, and then after that, it went back the way it came, and then just boop, and just gone. I was like, that was, I think, the first one out of a couple, but it's the most memorable. The other ones are just kind of like a quick glimpse, like, is that what I think? Oh, well, kind of gone. So,
Hmm.
mhm.
Um, that's interesting, actually. Very interesting. Um, did you ever get the feeling that there was a connection between the stuff going on
Above
above
and
you and the stuff that was going on down on the ground?
yeah, it definitely felt like uh there's some kind of energy for sure. Uh because I'm kind of into the metaphysical as well. And so uh the wife and I had to actually go through my hometown for work a couple weeks ago actually. And as I was driving through the hometown, I wanted to show her where I grew up. So I actually drove her down some of these streets where these stories happen, and I just couldn't believe how dense and heavy the air actually is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know exactly what it is, but it kind of felt like Amarillo is one of the windiest cities as well. The average wind speed is like 14 miles an hour, and that's like at probably 3 o'clock in the morning whenever there's like no wind. um,
Right.
but it felt like almost a vortex of sorts, just because there's something moving, but it's really thick and heavy. Um, I don't know how else to describe it besides icky. It kind of feels like you're in a weird cobweb that's moving. Uh, yeah. I
So, wow. About how close do you think Amarillo is to the 33rd parallel?
ooh, I don't know. Can I look it up real quick?
Sure.
Okay. Let me see. How else? So Amarillo, 33rd. What?
33rd
Par-
parallel.
um. Oh, let's see. I actually just found I need an X account to view that picture. That's a bummer. Um, so I would actually say that Amarillo is right above the 33rd, according to this one. It is right above that line.
So is like 33rd venturing into 34th?
It's a little bit north of the 33rd parallel from this look.
Wow. Yeah, that's significant too, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, the 33rd parallel, if you do research on that, you'll find some very interesting experiences. And it's interesting that you mentioned that it's like a vortex because that's one of the things that's associated with the 33rd parallel
Huh.
is like a almost vortex like energy. So that's very interesting. No wonder that name keeps coming up a lot.
I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. So you were like literally just in like a hotbed of stuff
Mhm.
going on there. Um,
There's one more that was really interesting. Can I share this one? It's a real quick one.
sure.
Okay, so we were staying the night at the same friend's house. This was probably uh, either a couple weeks before or a couple weeks after that alley incident. It was on my 16th birthday. I do know this for sure because on my way over, I was walking through and there's an old backstop in the field. And as I was walking past it, I kind of just heard a voice or got a feeling that I needed to go back there at midnight. And I was like, I don't know why, but I am going to tell my friends, hey, this is what we're going to do for my birthday. So we actually end up going out there at midnight. And while we're out there, the densest fog I've ever been in pulls up. I mean, it was so dense, we couldn't see each other within arm's reach. And it was there for about 5, 6 minutes, and then it was gone. And yeah, it was the weirdest thing ever. And you could feel like it felt like giant things were walking around, because it kind of felt like the earth itself was somewhat shaking a little bit. But it, and then as soon as it came, it was weird, and then it left.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had both of those friends that showed up in those other stories. They were there on that night with me. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Did you or your friends ever experience any physical symptoms from any of this?
I've been pushed and held up by a spirit at one point. I was
Wow.
I was talking to a friend outside of her window, and next thing I know, I'm being pushed by the small of my back up against into her brick wall. And she was like, "You look like you just seen a ghost." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure there's one pushing me right now."
Whoa.
And
Yeah.
she helped me inside the window, and it sounded like there was something walking around out there for a little bit, and then it just kind of left. And she always got creepy feelings outside of that window, but just stupid young boy, just like, it's okay. I'm going to deal with the creepy until I feel like I was invading its territory or something,
Mm.
because it was and the feeling of it was as real as someone with physical hands pushing on you, but like really like staticky and ice at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of like if that area that it touched, it was like that part of me fell asleep instantly. It That's probably the best way I can describe it. So but thankfully some other stuff has like moved around the house, just going to find something that shouldn't be where it is and you're the only one home, or you turn around and you see a door closing, just random stuff like that. But thankfully, nothing too physical except for that one. I think. Now that I think about it, it probably did cause more than I probably did cause a lot more than I'm giving it credit for. But whenever you're ignorant to it at the time, it kind of makes it a little bit better, I guess.
Right, right. Do you tend to be prone to being drawn toward electricity and electrical things?
Hmm. I actually was an electrician for about 5 years.
Mm, okay. So, and this is going to sound kind of a little bit strange, maybe, but did you ever have almost like an obsessive need to feel electrical current run through your body?
Yeah, pretty
Oh
much.
yeah, oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Because that's another thing that I find very interesting. There's with some people, it almost becomes an obsession
Hmm.
with electricity and so forth. Were you exposed to electrical shock early in your life?
Probably.
Probably.
Probably. I am known for being hurt in a lot of weird ways and somehow being just fine. Um, I've definitely shocked myself a lot as an electrician. But whenever I was younger, I can think of like a couple of times, but nothing that was like notable. Nothing that was like, ouch, that reminded me to never do that again.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things going on there with your whole background has some very good stuff going on there as far as the connection to the paranormal. Um, I'm really curious too. Like,
Mm.
is there a significance with the crow picture you have like above your head on the
Uh,
wall?
I'm actually a pagan, and my goddess is the Morrigan.
The Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, being surrounded by death for as long, and considering my heritage, it just kind of fit. I got called whenever I was about 12, 13. So all of this could also be tied to me having some kind of tie to that stuff. I don't know, but I think rather what it is, it makes me more sensitive to it.
Mhm.
Maybe not a magnet, but maybe at the same time, I'm not the one that can really sit there and definitively say. So,
Right, right. It's just very interesting. I kept noticing the crow. I'm like, that's got to be a Morgan thing.
hmm
Um, so yeah, there's um, and it's definitely the connection to the underworld
hmm
with that whole theology, which is very interesting. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking about the the skinless thing and the girl whose face had been cut up.
hmm
The word like the words human vivisection came to mind
mm,
when you said when you were talking about those things,
hmm
and so that's why I asked you about the UFO connection. Was if maybe there was something going on there that what you were seeing may have been the result of some experimentation going on, or possibly residue ghost, or even apparitions of people who had been experienced vivisection.
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought
Yeah,
about that. I've never thought about that, but you have a really good point.
yeah. A lot of times, one of the things that I find in these interviews, especially right now, and
hmm
I kind of want to blame it on the thinning of the veil, like everybody else does, but because I'm just that kind of cool kid. I always try to like blame it
hmm
on the veil because that's what's trending, and and it would be Mercury retrograde if it was happening right now. But
Yeah.
the thing is though is like one of the things that usually has been happening lately with
Mhm.
these interviews is I do get like just glimpses of things like spirit will like kind of like nudge me in one direction or the other and say, hey, think about this, or that sounds like this could be happening or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. Do you feel like, as far as the long term, do you feel like any of your past experiences are still kind of mold your world now, and what the residual effect of those things were?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, so I can definitely say that, um, yeah, it has molded the way that I kind of handle day to day life, in an unknowingly fashion. It's kind of weird. Uh, with that whole footsteps up and down the hallway kind of thing, to me, if I'm home alone, that doesn't ring any bells now. Like, it hasn't happened, but if it were to happen, it wouldn't really trip me out because I've just been so used to it. So I try to make sure all the doors are locked whenever I get home. Make sure that I am alone before I hear anything. So it does kind of make me check the house out, because it does make you kind of wonder like what's around the corner. So if I can see it, it kind of makes me a little bit better. I do actually put up like some protection crystals and stuff around the house. Try to keep bad energies out, because we all know what it's like to come to your sanctuary and it's not a sanctuary. So
Yeah, yeah,
try try to keep the mojo flowing in here. but it definitely made me be proactive in that sense, because I've seen what it can do. And like that was one of the things too, is that terror of being in the dark in that house, because it wasn't just like afraid. It wasn't like, oh no, like, oh, there's something there. It was terror. And that took a lot of time to get over. And I didn't necessarily get over it per se. I finally decided to kind of like look at it in its face and tell it that it can't do anything. And it didn't like it that much, but at the same time, it did kind of leave me alone, because it was like it would knock on the door every now and then just because it knew that it would make me mad, but it would never seem to enter my room after a certain point. So
Wow.
uh, after that, I just kind of made it to where uh, my mental health, I guess, started to decline. But I mean, I went through most of like all of high school in that same room, so I can see that I had a weird journey with it all, and it
Mhm.
may have actually pushed me in some directions that were unfavorable. But in the end, it's kind of all led me up to this point where I'm at now, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. But what I can say is that for the people that don't believe in the paranormal, like, more power to you, just like, fair enough. But once you experience it, there's like, there's no going back. Once you know it's there, it's
Right.
it's there.
Right. Exactly. And it's so funny because like early on when somebody experiences stuff for the first time, it's like the mind is a really an amazing machine. It immediately goes to trying to think about all the possible explanations for everything. Like the common questions that come to mind is, did I really just see that? Or,
Mhm.
oh, that was a dog, or that was a cat, or, oh, the thing that I'm looking for probably fell like behind the couch or something. And there's all these logical explanations that keep popping up all the time for the stuff that just doesn't have an explanation. And then eventually there's a progressive just feeling that you have to either come to grips with it or just deny it altogether.
Mhm.
And then eventually, most sane people will go, and people question how sane somebody is when they get to this point. But sane people will actually just get to the point where they fall into acceptance,
Mhm.
and stop trying to fight the possibilities. So yeah, there's definitely some progressive steps that a lot of people take to learning to cope with their experience,
Mhm.
especially if they're like really staunch non-believers. They're like, oh, nothing exists. I don't believe in anything.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, it's very interesting how all that takes place. Do you have children?
I do not at the time.
Okay,
So.
interesting. But you so okay. That's interesting too. So the one of the things that comes to mind with me is to is on your journey through sobriety,
Mhm.
you know, how how does that work for you as far as you these experiences go? Was it a way of, was it self-medicating in a sense to deal with some of those things?
It probably was. And that's kind of what I was hinting towards, was I didn't want to point fingers and say I drank because of spiritual entities or this, that, or the other, because I mean, in the end, the result was I drank. It was my decision to do or use and all that. But yeah, it really, those could have been underlying contributing factors that I didn't think about, because whenever I lived in that house, it was beyond creepy. It was kind of like I was always on edge. Um, and I guess that, I mean, that is where my drinking started. I'm not going to lie. So it did
Mhm.
start in that room. And it probably, I mean, they do call it spirits for a reason. So,
Right.
mhm.
Right. And and I just want to point out, like, you have like some crazy, like, magnetic eyes. It's like I just keep like get the between the color and the way that you express yourself through your eyes and so forth. It's like I just keep like going right back to your eyes. I'm like, that is like some compelling eyes there. Which is very interesting because a lot of that tends to be very common in Celtic bloodlines. A lot of times the eyes tend to be very compelling and people tend to be drawn toward the eyes a lot of time, especially like you have like a really intense blue going on. So it's
They're,
like I'm sure you hear that a lot.
yeah, they're blue, green, and yellow. Like, they'll kind of change up pattern. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Well, thank
So
you.
what I want to do this. I want to keep in touch with you
Okay.
because I want to find out you know what, if anything, it continues to go on.
Hmm.
I want to mark the progress, so to say, of your experiences, and and we're gonna like go into a little bit of just researching some of those things. I'm really curious about. So, do you still live very fairly close to the 33rd parallel?
To be fair, for any Letterkenny fans out there, let me double check this map because I might actually be closer to it now. Now that you mentioned that,
Wow.
because I live in the Garland area, which is about 6.5 hours southeast from Amarillo. So, according to this map, I would say I live closer to it now. That's interesting.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think like um, doing some research there and definitely keeping up with your story and finding out exactly how
mhm.
things evolve with you is definitely something that should happen.
Okay.
Just based on everything that, because like honestly, like just from your email and so forth, I was not real. I figured we were going to be talking about some random experiences that you
Mhm.
had that really didn't tie together very much or whatever. I just kind of got that vibe, but it's like, and the more you talk, the more I was like,
It's
this is crazy.
it's hard to tie it all together because like they seem like separate incidences, but after living
But they're
through it
not.
and connecting the dots, they're really not. And that's why I was like, I kind of hope you get it, and you totally do. And I'm very appreciative because I've learned some stuff on here, and that's going to be interesting to do some research and let you know what all I come up with. So.
Yeah, yeah. And I just, like I said, I'm just like, I've got so much to go on here now
Mhm.
to dive into, which is really good. But so we are coming up on the 1 hour mark, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to be mindful of people's time as
Uh-huh.
much as possible. So again, if you will, just give us a little bit of a rundown again of your social media and your podcast.
Okay. Sure thing. So my podcast is Retrieving Sanity. It's a mental health podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook. It's on Spotify. It's on Podbean, but I need to update that. But you can find it in most places that you find a podcast. And you can also go to retrievingsanity.com. There you'll have a profile page for all the special guests that I've had. So check out their stuff. It's some really entertaining and very enlightening stuff that my guests share. So, I mean, I just can't wait to be back on. This was a lot of fun.
Right. Well, and it's so funny because like I just put one of my banners up. I'm like, usually whenever I'm doing a interview, like I'll have like the scrolling thing going on and all kinds of stuff. And I've been so absorbed in your story, I haven't even paid any attention to any of that today. So, because it's like there's a lot going on there, and it's very interesting. So, do me a favor, hang out in the green room for a moment, if you will, and I'm going to close this out, and then I'll get back with you in just a moment.
All righty. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. All right. So there you have it. Keegan Reed. Man, I don't know about you guys, but that is some really deep stuff going on there. And once again, if you follow any of my past podcasts, I have to be careful when I say that because I get really tongue-tied with those words for some reason. Or you have followed us on the Forum of the Forbidden, you know that there's a connection with the 33rd in a lot of ways, and especially like with like where it runs through, the areas it runs through is very significant to the locations of some really hot spots. So this is one of the reasons why I want to continue with Keegan's story, because I think there is a serious connection there, and I think it all links together somewhere, and we are going to find out. So keep in touch with me on that, you guys. Follow through. Meanwhile, I love you guys, and as always, may your journey always be magical.